In this video, we're going to show you how to install the CV axle on your Honda Ridgeline located behind your passenger side front wheel. Using a 22mm socket, you want to go ahead and loosen and remove your lug nuts. Now that you have your lug nuts removed, grab that wheel, remove it, and set it aside. Now with the wheel removed, we're going to go ahead and rotate our axle. And what we're looking for is this notch in the axle itself. And normally what you want to see is the dimple on the axle nut that goes into the axle. We're going to use our chisel tip here, or our punch. We want to undo that little dimple. So we're going to use this and just open that up. We're going to use a 36mm socket and loosen or remove the nut. Next, you want to be able to push on this axle. You want this to be free from the splines on the hub itself. And well, ours is kind of stuck. So we're going to go ahead and spray a little bit of rust penetrant in there. Hopefully we'll work some in there. And let that soak for a short bit. What we're going to do next is, if your axle is not free floating, we need to break it free. So we're going to use a punch here, and we're going to put it right in the hole. And we're going to go ahead and tap this. All right, we now have that free, and you can see it bouncing back a little bit, back and forth. And that's what we want. I'm going to go ahead and spray this a little bit more. And I'm going to reach around the back side, and I'm going to grab that axle and pull it out towards me. Spray that some more and try and work this back and forth. Okay. That's what we want. Now you're probably wondering why I didn't just use the hammer and smash the end of our axle here. Well, you don't want to mushroom off the end of this here in case for some reason you cannot do this job. So you want to prevent from damaging the end of the axle. That's why you use the punch in the hole here. Now over here, I want to go ahead and separate our ABS wire from our strut. Pop that out, come around the other side, and we're going to press in on these little spring tabs. Want to remove the cotter pin on your outer tie rod end here. We're going to use a pair of cutters. You can use regular pliers if you want. And straighten out the legs. You might have one leg here or two. I'm just straightening these out. I'm going to go to the other side, pinch and pull. Sometimes these are rusted in here. So if you end up breaking it out, we'll just have to chase the cotter pin later on, drill it out. So our cotter pin broke off inside here. Can't do much about it right now, but we're going to use a 19mm socket. I'm going to go ahead, loosen and remove the nut on the tie rod end. Now at this point, we're going to go ahead and try and work this cotter pin out. Spraying a little bit of rust penetrant on there. Use a punch. So now that we got our cotter pin out, we're going to go ahead and use our hammer, and we're going to strike our knuckle right here to go ahead and release the outer tie rod. There it is. I want to go ahead and loosen and remove our 24 millimeter nuts on our strut to knuckle bolts. So I'm going to use I'm going to hold the wrench here, 24 mil socket on the other side with our impact. All right, in our case here, we're going to have to use some heat on our bolts and nuts here because ours are pretty much rusted pretty bad. So we're going to heat these up and then loosen those nuts. We did, for safety purposes, we unbolted our flex hose with a 12 millimeter socket from the side here, pulled that off, and we anchored our ABS wire off to the side to prevent any damage from being done while heating things up. Please take precaution if you are heating these things. You don't want to ruin any of the components when doing this job. Now our hardware is very hot, but we're going to go ahead and remove our bolts here. Just tapping on that CV axle now to go ahead and work that out. Now when we remove this lower bolt, the knuckle is going to want to drop away, which is totally fine. You just want to make sure that you don't have the ABS wire pulling or the brake flex hose pulling. To work that back. Now the knuckle is going to drop down a little bit. Go ahead and rotate this. Go ahead and pull that axle out. Nope, underneath the vehicle, right behind your oil pan here, it comes back. Here's your CV axle where it goes in to the center shaft. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my bar here. I'm going to put it over the exhaust onto the CV axle here, and I'm going to hit it with a hammer. And you can see that I'm popping the axle out. All right, our axle is out. Let's go ahead and remove it from the outside. Now on the outside, you can go ahead and grab that axle and pull it out. Nice and easy. Grab the new axle, slide it in the same way. And we're going to line that up. Line it up on the shaft. Once you get that lined up, it should slide right on. Now, just as an extra precaution, we took a securing strap, just put it around one of the studs here and up to the strut spring itself. That's going to keep this knuckle kind of pulled off to the side, keeping our flex hose from pulling abnormally. Now we're going to continue to use our rubber mallet. And we're tapping this in to set the axle further in. Now, if you keep on working that and rotating that axle, you can actually reach in and feel that the axle has now bottomed out. It's now seated. So you can go ahead and take that axle, line that up. If you want, go ahead and clean up the inside here, get rid of any old garbage and debris. Go ahead and take that knuckle assembly, work that axle into it, just kind of rotating it and pushing that knuckle up into that strut assembly. Once you get this in position, go ahead and work our bolts in. You need to get one of those bolts in. Go ahead and get the other one in. You might go ahead and grab that strut, wiggle that around. Now we did put some anti-seize compound on those bolts. Make sure we get some on the threaded side here for the nuts. Go ahead and get those started. With both of those started, I'm going to go ahead and remove my securing strap. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and install my flex hose to the strut. I'm just going to go ahead and tighten that down. I can reconnect my ABS connectors here. Going to tighten down our strut bolts. Going to torque down our strut nuts here to 156 foot-pounds. And our bolt is spinning. So I'm going to put our wrench in here. All right. Let's go ahead and bring our tie rod end over. Install that. Get our nut installed. I want to go ahead and torque that down to 40 foot-pounds. Once you have that torqued, I'm going to go ahead and replace the cotter pin. I'm going to put it through, bend over one of the legs, snip off the excess. If you want, you can bend over both of the legs, but one is plenty sufficient. Go ahead and install your axle nut. Tighten that down. Our next step is to go ahead and torque this. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a couple lug nuts. Now this axle nut needs to be torqued down to 242 foot-pounds. And the reason why I put the lug nuts on is to get some leverage here when we go to torque this. Go ahead and remove the lug nuts. Rotate this here. And what we're looking for is this notch here in our axle. We need to dimple this to prevent that nut from backing off. So I'm going to use a flat edge chisel tip here. And all we're doing is just dimpling this down. That's it for that. Now that we're done with the job, go ahead and spray down that brake rotor. You want to go ahead and clean up that surface. Don't forget the other side as well. Now when you are replacing suspension components or anything like that on the front end, Always recommended to go ahead and have an alignment performed after you've completed the job. Once your rotor's all cleaned up, go ahead and install your wheel and you're all set. Okay, you can grab that wheel, line that up. Let's go ahead and get our lug nuts all started by hand. Once these are all started, I'm going to go ahead and snug them all down. Torque down your lug nuts to 94 foot-pounds. When doing this, you want to do this in a crisscross or star pattern.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.